I don't know, I suppose that a lot of things that we were doing back in the 60s with Cornelius and David Bedford and people like that got called performance art or something now. And I don't know, the early days of the Scratch Orchestra, there's some things that involved sound, but not everything. And, I just think that it's by now become rather historical kind of label to put on things.
Experimental.
Yes, because I mean, there's some music involving straight up instruments and playing notes on them that's highly inventive and experimental and original in concept. And then there are things involving, I don't know, stamping on the floor or something that are very traditional. I'd like to feel that anybody who had lively interest in composition was ploughing a lonely furrow to a certain extent. Because there's nobody who can tell you how to write. I went to Royal College of Music and I'd been taught music from the age of 4. So I was learning musical notation at the same time as learning to read.
Oh, right, yeah.
And my first teacher, who's Swiss, she was called Helene Gibbs. And she was a pupil of Ivan Knorr, who's a pupil of Brahms. So I'm a great-grand pupil of Brahms.
Well, there's your lineage.
Which I'm quite pleased about. She was wonderful in that she didn't have any educational tricks, but she just communicated a great passion for music and the way it works. She used to have a class of us kind of under 10-year-old people, and she used to have us march around the room beating time while she improvised music in 3-time, 4-time, and she taught us about chords, cadences, modulation, and she got us kind of taking down dictation. So by the time I was 7, I was able to write down reasonably accurate, and it wasn't a big deal. It was just something that Mrs. Gibbs did on Tuesday evening.
Oh, right, yes.
But then I stopped music altogether when I was 11, because you wouldn't believe it now, but I was into sport and...
When you were 11.
One is. And so, and schoolwork was getting too much, so I gave up for a few years. And then I went to St Paul's, which, when I arrived there, it was totally moribund, musically speaking. And then along came Mad Welshman, who just lit the whole place up musically. And he played me Ravel's Sonatine, and age of 14, and that was it. And
that's fascinating.
I just took up the piano again, and from a totally different point of view, instead of all of this bull about winning prizes at competitions and things and getting good marks in associated board exams. Instead of that, it was about the music. Before I went to college, I studied for a while, again in my my sort of teens. I studied with a guy called Arthur Alexander, studied piano with him, and he'd been a pupil of Tobias Mattei and was into a very particular attitude of piano playing. He was a kind of guru at the Royal College of Music, so when I got entry to college, I stayed on with him. And in the run-up to college, I went to Elizabeth Lutyens for analysis.
Because she's already sort of slightly off the beaten track, or in a way, isn't she?
Yes. I mean, she belonged to a generation whose careers had got really sidetracked by the war. There was that generation who had taken on board that tonality and had its day. And so there are people like the three you've mentioned, Racine Fricker, Humphrey Searle, Matthias Scheiber, Lizzie Lutyens, who stood against the work of Herbert Howells, Benjamin Britten, all of the people who were ploughing rather a kind of honest, traditional furrow. And, backtracking a bit into our history, I left St Paul's early because I was going through a bad teenage trough and became totally hopeless. Kept getting thrown out of forms, not being able to keep up with the work and that kind of thing. And the only thing that I kept doing at St Paul's was art, because I was keenly interested in sculpture at the time.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather and aunt lived in St Ives, Cornwall, and were close friends of Barbara Hepworth and Ben
Oh, right.
Nicholson. And at the age of 14, they'd introduced me to these people, and I just got totally infected by that atmosphere of the studios and the work going on.
Sure. Yeah.
So as my curriculum got simpler and simpler at St Paul's, I spent more time in the cycle shed doing huge sculptures. I left school at 16, to everybody's surprise, having scored a few A-levels and a few O-levels, and got a job in Harrods display department as an assistant display man.
Oh, right, yeah.
And
not using a sculpture, though?
No, it's just learning the craft of window display, and in the evenings I used to go to the Hammersmith School of Building Arts and Crafts, do interior design.
Mm-hmm.
And during lunch hours I used to play pianos in the piano department.
Mm-hmm.
And
fantastic.
had such
wonderful
a good
pianos to try out.
Yes, lots of pianos, and the music that I played was Mio and Schoenberg and Hindemith. And there was a young man who just come over from Australia who was working in boys' underwear, of all things. It was Malcolm Williamson, who was the master of the Queen's music.
Yeah.
And he said, "Why do you play this stuff?" And I said, "Because I find it very interesting, so I like it." And anyway, he took an interest in me and started introducing me to people like Lizzie Lutyens and Alan Rawsthorne and Sir Arthur Bliss and all of the people who are doing the contemporary music scene at the time. And I found myself playing some of Elizabeth Lutyens' music and playing bits of Humphrey Searle and Schoenberg and that kind of thing. I think at the time I used to dream of a day when it would all make sense.
Right, yeah. But you were attracted to it in some sort of a way, though.
It's because the same way that I was attracted to abstract painting and tendentious sculpture, that kind of thing. I just really wanted to know all about this dead weird music that my parents disapproved of. I was about a year or so into the Royal College of Music at the time, and suddenly thought, okay, I'm going to write a piano sonata.
I was going to ask, when is the first of this impressive line of sonatas?
I don't know about impressive, but a lot of them.
Well, what are you up to now?
170 now.
It is, yeah.
Yes, 1956 was a very fruitful year for me, because I heard Turanga Leela first time. I heard Kurt Weill's Seven Deadly Sins, and I heard West Side Story. And between those, yes, I remember Turanga Leela being a big life-changing event for me. It was just the kind of music that seemed to have intellectual aspirations and was very sensual and also fun to listen to. It just seemed to have got so much going for it, and went away and started composing straight away afterwards. My first sonata was being done at an SPNM concert by a pianist called Colin Kingsley. There are two characters absolutely rolling about with laughter during my piece who are sitting in front of me. And it turned out later that one of them was Cornelius Cardew.